The smell of scorched linen filled the cabin that morning, followed by the sound of a scream that didn't belong to any burning cloth. Anna's voice echoed through the wooden walls, trembling and desperate. Her knees pressed into the cold floorboards as the iron seared into the skin of her arm. "Next time you'll remember to fold them straight," hissed Mrs. Hargrove, her face a mask of fury. Outside, the snow fell softly through the pine trees, but inside that cabin, hell had already arrived. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, forgiveness, and second chances, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who might need a reminder that hope still exists, and subscribe to the channel for more stories that touch the heart. Anna had been working for the Hargroves for 3 years now, ever since her father died in the logging accident that left her with nothing but debts and memories. She was 24, soft-spoken and fragile-looking, but inside her was the kind of quiet strength that only those who have survived loss carry. Each day, she woke before dawn to scrub, wash, and cook, while Mrs. Hargrove, the mistress of the house, found new ways to remind her that she was nothing more than a servant. Mr. Hargrove had once been kind, before his timber business went bankrupt, before the bottle became his closest friend. Now, he spent his days in silence and his nights in anger. But the real cruelty came from his wife. She wasn't just mean, she was broken in ways that made her delight in breaking others. She often said that servants were born to be taught lessons, and Anna, unfortunately, was her favorite student. That morning, Anna had been ironing a dress when she accidentally scorched one of Mrs. Hargrove's silk aprons. It was a mistake, small and human, but in that household, mistakes were treated like sins. Mrs. Hargrove grabbed the iron from Anna's hand, her eyes blazing, and pressed it against her forearm. Anna's cry tore through the cabin like a dying bird's song. She crumpled to the floor, clutching her arm as tears welled in her eyes. But fate, it seemed, had other plans that day. Outside, the rumble of an engine broke through the quiet of the forest. A motorcycle, its growl deep and heavy, rolled up the dirt path to the cabin. The man who stepped off it didn't belong in that frozen world of wooden walls and old money. He wore a leather jacket patched with an emblem that read Rival Pit Road Gear, the mark of a biker brotherhood known for both trouble and loyalty. His name was Luke, and beneath that rough, scarred exterior was a heart that had seen too much pain to ignore another's. He had come to deliver a part Mr. Hargrove had ordered, a replacement gear for an old sawmill machine. But what he walked into was something entirely different. As Luke pushed open the door, the first thing he saw was Anna, on the floor, trembling, her sleeves scorched, her eyes wet with terror. The second was Mrs. Hargrove, standing over her with the iron still in her hand, her face flushed with the thrill of control. Luke froze for a moment, the scene sinking into his chest like a blade. Then his voice thundered through the cabin, "That's enough." The iron slipped from Mrs. Hargrove's hand, landing with a dull thud on the rug. Her mouth fell open in surprise, but Luke's stare silenced her before she could speak. He stepped forward, his boots echoing on the wooden floor. Anna looked up at him, confusion and fear mingling in her eyes. Luke knelt beside her, his voice softening as he said, "You don't deserve this. Nobody does." He took her hand gently, inspecting the burn. Without another word, he helped her stand and led her outside. Mrs. Hargrove screamed after them, calling him a thug, a criminal, but Luke didn't turn around. He had seen too many like her before, people who used their power to hurt others and called it discipline. The cold air bit at Anna's skin, but for the first time in years, she felt something close to freedom. Luke sat her on his motorcycle, wrapped his leather jacket around her shoulders, and said he'd take her to the nearest town clinic. She tried to protest. Where would she go afterward? What would become of her job, her home? But Luke only said, sometimes walking away is the only way to start over. At the small-town hospital, the nurse tended to her burn and gave her a bed for the night. Luke waited outside the door, leaning against the wall, silent and still. He didn't owe her anything, but he stayed anyway. When Anna woke up later that evening, he was still there, handing her a cup of warm tea. Over the next few days, Luke helped her find a place at a local diner where she could work and live safely. She learned he was a mechanic, fixing bikes and old machines for a living. Beneath his rugged look and quiet manner, there was a man who believed in redemption, because he had needed it once himself. Years ago he'd hurt people, made choices he regretted. But someone had once told him, no one's too broken to start over. He had lived by those words ever since. Months passed. Anna began to smile again. Her laughter slowly replaced her fear, and the scar on her arm became a reminder, not of pain but of survival. Sometimes, when Luke stopped by the diner for coffee, he'd notice how her eyes lit up when she talked about the future. He never asked for gratitude, and she never stopped being thankful. Then one snowy morning, a letter arrived at the diner. It was from Mrs. Hargrove. Her husband had died, and she was left alone in that cabin, cold, empty, and full of regret. The letter was brief but heavy. She wrote, "I've thought of you often. I was wrong. I hope you're happy now." Anna wept when she read it, not out of pity, but out of closure. She realized forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. It meant freeing herself from the weight of hate. She wrote back simply, "I am, and I hope one day you will be too." That evening, Luke found her sitting outside the diner, watching the sunset. She told him about the letter. He nodded quietly, then said, "You did good, Anna. You chose peace over revenge. That takes real strength." As the orange light faded behind the trees, Anna smiled faintly. "You know," she said, "maybe people really can start over." And for the first time in her life, she truly believed it. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe for more stories that remind us that kindness can change everything. Before you go, drop a comment below and tell us, do you believe people deserve second chances? Because sometimes one act of courage, one moment of kindness, can turn someone's hell into the beginning of their heaven.